So, Senator Moran, do you want to say your comments so you have plenty of time to vote and not miss your hearing?
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. It's a real privilege to testify, to be in front of this committee. I hold the Intel Committee in high regard and recognize its important role in securing the security of our citizens. And I appreciate the consideration that you and Senator Warner provided in the timing. Members of the committee, thank you very much for the opportunity to advocate for declassification reform and for having this open setting, Mr. Chairman. As you may be aware, I am a sponsor alongside with a member of this committee, Senator Wyden, Senate Bill 3733, the Declassification Reform Act. Senator Wyden and I worked on this issue for a long time. It is surprising to me that the end result is so straightforward and relatively simple. But it is an attempt to begin the process of modernizing declassification by designating the Director of National Intelligence as the executive agent responsible for promoting programs, processes, and systems related to declassification. Though the bill itself rests within the jurisdiction of another committee, this committee has previously considered this bill as an amendment offered by Senator Wyden to the Intelligence Authorization Act. I appreciate the discussion of this bill, which many of you have personally visited with me on the floor and throughout the Capitol complex. The conversations in today's hearing underscore a recognition that the process which guides our nation's release of declassified information are antiquated and are unable to keep up with the overwhelming flood of digital data that is classified on a daily basis. Congress has been told repeatedly over the years that the system is unsustainable. Last year, the Director of Information Security Oversight Office wrote to the President that, quote, "the current framework is unsustainable and desperately requires modernization," unquote. In 2016, the Public Interest Declassification Board reported the classification system is, quote, "no longer able to handle the current volume and forms of information, especially given the exponential growth of digital information," unquote. 4 years later, there is little evidence that the problem is on a path to being solved. The current system holds on to records that no longer require classification, and its impacts to taxpayers is estimated to be $18 billion per year. And it denies public access to information that can be used to hold the government accountable. As the Public Interest Declassification Board notes, the overwhelmed system hurts us policymakers as well. Senator Wyden approached me in late 2018 and asked me to join him in an effort to craft legislation that would begin to address this problem. While I indicated my great regard for members of this committee, I am not one of them, and so there might be a question as why is this an interest to me? And certainly the ability to save taxpayer dollars is of interest to me. The ability to be more transparent to the American public is of interest to me, and the ability for us as policymakers to have the necessary information available to us is important to me. Protecting those taxpayers to the tune of billions that is spent on classification and ensuring transparency from the federal government, and the ability to do that without jeopardizing national security is a priority. For well over a year, we've consulted with experts from the Public Interest Declassification Board, Information Security Oversight Office, and the National Archives, and other outside experts, and the officials from our nation's intelligence agencies, as well as staff from this Intelligence Committee. We know technical solutions such as artificial intelligence and machine learning exist to facilitate bringing our system into the 21st century, and we know individual agencies are taking steps with some of this technology to address the issue, but more coordinated effort that implements best practices is clearly required. The final product, the Declassification Reform Act, adopts the key recommendation from the latest report issued in May by the Public Interest Declassification Board. Senator Wyden and I are not under the impression that naming an executive agent will resolve every problem associated with classifying and declassifying information, but we do believe appointing an official with sufficient authority to implement changes across the federal government is a really good first step. Our consultations over the past year, we know that there is resistance and suggested improvements to the Declassification Reform Act, and we also recognize there are other ideas that can facilitate reform. I'm pleased today's hearing will seek to flesh out our bill and other ideas to address the problem of this magnitude. Whatever the direction that this committee determines to move forward with reform, resources will be necessary to implement it. As a member of the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee, please consider me an ally in this endeavor. I've been pleased to join Senator Wyden in this effort, and I'm equally eager to work with the members of this committee in achieving declassification reform that is long overdue and yet protects American citizens in our national security. Mr. Chairman, I thank you again for having this open hearing that allows me to testify, and I thank you and the committee members for their time and the opportunity to be here today.
Thank you, Senator Moran.